Welcome, Ranger Wright, for coming to talk to us again, joining us on our Community Day. We're so excited to have you in this special topics. Go ahead, Ranger Wright.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm glad to be back for another Community Day and to speak about our parks in winter. I'm going to share my screen. But first, my background that I have behind me here is Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, which is one of the topics I'll be talking about today. It's one of my favorite parks in our system. All right, so we are talking about parks in winter, and because we are in winter right now, and winter is the season, and we might not have snow in San Mateo County for the most part during the winter time, but there are interesting things that you can find around every corner in our county parks. And so I'm going to go into some of the cool things that you might see if you end up going to our parks, or any parks really, in San Mateo County this winter. So just to start off, if you're not familiar with our department, we have 24 parks in total, including 3 regional trails, 2 historic sites, and 1 marina. Our newest additions are the Calparisma Trail, which is just south of Half Moon Bay, and Tanitas Creek Beach, which is also south of Half Moon Bay along Highway 1, although Tanitas Creek Beach isn't open to the public yet. We're in the middle of planning that project. And if you're interested in finding out more about that project, there's some information on our website. So I'll be highlighting a number of different parks today, but each of our parks have their own charm and unique features that are worth checking out if you want to get out there. Before we start the presentation, I want to share our land acknowledgement statement. That San Mateo County Parks acknowledges that our lands are located on the ancestral homeland of the Ohlone peoples, and that as the original stewards of this land, the Ohlone understood the interconnectedness of all things and maintained harmony with nature for millennia. Indigenous communities have lived in and moved through this place over hundreds of generations, and Indigenous peoples from many nations live and work in this region today. Please join me in acknowledging and honoring their ancestors, their elders, and their communities. All right, so first and foremost, if you are interested in visiting our parks, we always recommend that you check out our website for additional information before you visit. And our website is at the top right of this page, and I'll put it in the chat as well, so that you can check it out and maybe even look at it in tandem with this presentation if you want. We on our website, each of our parks lets you know if there's an entry fee, what types of recreation are permitted, including if the park is dog friendly, and also really relevant information right now if the park has any closures due to weather or project related issues. So as you can see on this slide, there have been some trees that have come down with the recent weather, as well as some flooding of trails. And if you're interested in visiting our parks, that's important information to have so that you can make sure that the park is ready for you to visit and safe for you to visit. Also, Monday through Friday, except for holidays, people 62 years and older get in free at our county parks for the ones that do charge entry fees. So just information for if you're interested in visiting. All right, so what is winter? Most of us probably know what winter is, but particularly what is winter in San Mateo County and what does it mean for our parks? So in the Northern Hemisphere, winter is from December to February, and it's defined as the coldest season of the year. It's when the tilt of the Earth's axis is farther away from the sun. And the average low in our county is about 42 degrees Fahrenheit. And we typically, hopefully, start to see our rainy season begin. We have the shortest days of the year that gradually lengthen as we move into spring. And in particular, San Mateo County, which has an overall very temperate climate. So we overall do not have temperatures that get too hot or too cold, which affects the habitats and the species that call our county home as well. And what does this mean for our parks? Well, as I mentioned on the previous page, influxes in weather conditions can cause closures and extra work for park staff to make sure that the parks are safe. But it also means some really interesting phenomena that are best seen in winter. So first, let's talk about water features. So as I mentioned on the last couple slides, we've been experiencing a fair amount of rain this winter, which is amazing and really great for our parks, although it might not be great for some of our infrastructure. Most of our parks have creeks that run through or near them, but most notably are San Pedro Creek in San Pedro Valley Park and Pescadero Creek in Memorial Park. And both of these parks also have winter runs of steelhead trout, which is the species of fish you can see on the slide here. Steelhead trout are a threatened species of fish that spawns and rears in fresh water and then spends its adult life in the ocean. And these fish remarkably remember which streams they were born in and try to make their way back upstream to spawn when it comes time. And you'll typically see steelhead in these two creeks between about like February and March. So a couple of years ago, I was leading a steelhead trout hike, talking all about the life history of steelhead, and we actually did get to see some adult steelhead trout swimming up Pescadero Creek in Memorial Park to go spawn. So that was really a really cool experience. Unfortunately, over the many decades, many of the streams along the coast side have dried up or they've been dammed off for other uses. And so the population of steelhead trout is declining, as well as the population of coho salmon, who also historically have called these creeks home for a spawning ground. And then last year, though, fortunately, the last couple of years, the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District, along with many other local agencies, completed a decades-long project to improve the flow of Pescadero Creek and to repopulate the stream with coho salmon with their fry, which is the young life stage, by releasing thousands of coho salmon to hopefully come back and spawn in the stream in a few years once they're adults. So there's more information about this effort and a whole webinar that we co-hosted with the Resource Conservation District available on our YouTube channel. And I'll put a link to the YouTube channel in the chat later on. So also at San Pedro Valley Park, and it's visible right now after we've had these significant rains, is Brooks Falls. And Brooks Falls is a thin and temporary during the rainy season 175-foot waterfall that falls over 3 drops, and it's in Pacifica. It's one of the tallest waterfalls in San Mateo County, and it can be seen across the valley from the Brooks Falls Trail, which is aptly named. Lastly, although they are all behind us for the year, from what I understand, winter brings with it king tides. And this occurs when the sun and moon are working together to gravitationally pull the oceans in the same direction. And the king tides bring very, very low tides and also very high tides. And they are a good predictor for what sea level rise will look like in the coming decades due to climate change. So we did see a lot of like really high tides at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve and Coyote Point, especially the location behind me at Fitzgerald. And I'll get more into Fitzgerald in a little bit too. So yeah, if you have any questions about anything I'm talking about, you can put them in the chat or ask them at the end of the presentation as well. All right, next, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite things to find in parks in the winter. Mushrooms. Mushrooms come out in after the rains, and we have mushrooms with all other sorts of fun oddities in our park. On this slide alone, we have witch's butter up in the upper left, shaggy mane, which is right here, jack-o'-lantern right here, which also can glow in the dark. Pretty cool mushroom. We have, let's see. Oh, sorry, shaggy mane was the top left, and this is right here. This is coral fungi. We have chicken of the woods right here in the bottom right. We have the earth star mushroom, which is pretty rare, but really cool looking. Stinkhorn, and also aptly named. Oyster mushrooms, which are edible, but we don't permit collecting of mushrooms in our parks. And then last but not least is this one right here. It's called a slime mold. And they were historically classified as fungi, but they're now considered amoebozoans, which are a large group of eukaryotic single-celled organisms. And it's interesting because they are single-celled, but they also function as a group, which is really a weird scientific phenomena. So fungi and their allies are fascinating. And we did a presentation all about the fascinating fungi of San Mateo County Parks with author and mycologist Christian Schwarz last February, which is available to watch on our YouTube channel as well. He goes over basically all the functions of different fungi, which way more specific than what I'll say here. But if you're interested, it's a 50-minute program that you can check out on our YouTube channel. But like I said, we can do a whole presentation about fungi. They're so diverse and very important to everything that we consider a part of life. Fungi are our decomposers. They break down the dead and decaying matter in the world and bring it back into its cellular components with the help of invertebrates and bacteria, so that the building blocks of life can be used again. And without fungi and other decomposers, we'd be miles and miles high in dead matter. So we consider them the original recyclers. Fungi also assist in the growth of plants. So approximately 90% of all vascular land plants live in some association with mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhizae are symbiotic relationships that form between fungi and plants. And this all happens underground, so we could call them maybe a silent partner. The fungi colonize or group around the root of a host plant, and they provide branches out into the soil to provide increased water and nutrient absorption for the plant. And then the plant provides the fungus carbohydrates or energy that the plant formed during photosynthesis. So it's a symbiotic relationship between the two. And mycorrhizae fungi also offer the host plant increased protection against certain pathogens.
You know how to get that left side?
I think we have someone unmuted. If we could mute them, it'd be great.
Yeah.
There are also so many other cool things to mention, but I'll leave it off just saying that you can pretty much find mushrooms in almost every single one of our parks.
Make this bigger by getting that part away.
One second, I'm going to try to mute people who are talking. Okay, got it. All right, so you can find mushrooms in pretty much every single one of our parks. And to find the incredible diversity that you see on this slide, you might want to head out to a park with oak woodland or mixed evergreen habitat. Different types of host plants or soils host different kinds of mushrooms. And so these kinds of mushrooms are mostly found.
Look at the different kinds of mushrooms, Steve.
Let's see, in mixed evergreen habitats or oak woodlands. You can also find them in forests like redwood forests as well. They're just different types of fungi everywhere. So Uniprocera Park in San Bruno, Hutter and Wonderlick Parks in Woodside, Edgewood Park in Redwood City, and San Pedro Valley Park in Pacifica are all good options to check out specifically for oak woodland and mixed evergreen habitats. So like I mentioned, if you're curious about more about fungi, we have a great webinar that was hosted last February on our YouTube channel, and you can check it out, and I'll put the link for that in the chat later on. All right, we're going to switch off to another really cool group of funky looking creatures in our tide pools. So we thought the diversity of fungi is cool. Wait till you see what we can find in our tide pools. Fitzgerald Marine Reserve is located in Moss Beach, north of Half Moon Bay, and it's a premier location to go tide pooling. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the tides are created by the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun on the oceans of the earth. And this pull causes low tides to occur twice a day. And the winter time is blessed with lots of great low tides during daylight hours, especially in the afternoon. The winter is also a good time to see tide pool creatures, as they aren't as affected by the heat of the bright warm sun during low tide. It's not as bright outside. And if you're interested in coming out to Fitzgerald Marine Reserve to check out the low tide, be sure to plan ahead and check out tide charts for the next low tide during our park hours. And I'm going to put a link in the chat right now for our tide charts that you can check out, and you can, check out tides years in advance if you want. But be aware also that Fitzgerald Marine Reserve is in a marine protected area, which means that everything in this reserve is protected by federal law. So there's no collecting or fishing or touching of the creatures permitted. Also, tide pooling can be treacherous, as the rocks can be slippery and waves can sneak up on you. So be sure to never turn your back on the ocean and wear appropriate footwear. Hiking shoes are best. And the weather also can change quickly, so we recommend you dress in layers to stay warm. So with that, I'm going to show you some of the cool creatures that you can find in our tide pools. So we've got lots of invertebrate and vertebrate life that you can find in the tide pools. We've got rock crabs, like up in the upper left corner. We have sea stars, like in the upper right corner. We have sea anemones, like in the bottom right corner, and mussels, and our beautiful octopus, and also tons of different types of nudibranchs or sea slugs, which are some of my favorites. This is a Hopkins rose, and this one is a hermescenda. Some of our volunteers like to think of this one as like a truffula tree from the Dr. Seuss novel, The Lorax, or not novel, but book, The Lorax. So lots of really cool things to find in the tide pools. And there's just, so many interesting things out there. Every single time I've gone to Fitzgerald, which is probably hundreds of times by now, I find something different or strange, like, something new. So a couple of years ago, we had an influx of these Hopkins rose nudibranchs, and we saw maybe 10 or 20 per day, which is quite a bit. And now you don't see them really anymore at all. So it just kind of changes with the tides, quite literally. And it's a fun place to go check out and see what you can find. And if you want more information about this or any of our parks, you can find it on our website at that parks page. There's a whole video that we put together with more information about the tide pools. Next, we've got monarch migration. So monarch butterflies are one of the most familiar North American butterfly species. And unfortunately, they've been facing a decline in population over the past few decades. Western monarchs follow an incredible migration path. Each winter, as you can see on this slide, they come from the Western Rocky Mountains to the West Coast to overwinter here. And they usually roost in trees such as Monterey pine and eucalyptus at night and during the colder parts of the day. And they'll rest in clumps together and bask in the sunlight to warm themselves. They typically arrive in November and leave to head east again in the spring. They don't overwinter in a lot of different groups in every year in San Mateo County, but in the past we have seen them in Murata Surf East and Quarry Park in El Granada, which is north of Half Moon Bay. There are also sites along the coast in Natural Bridges State Park in Santa Cruz, and Pismo Beach in Central California, a little bit farther south, where you can see this phenomenon. But it's pretty beautiful to see this, and I hope that this year shows an increase that in population that continues to increase, but we'll see.
Hey, Catherine, I was just
Yeah.
at the Pismo Beach Monarch Butterfly Grove.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ago.
How was
Oh my
it?
God, it's beautiful. And there were lots of butterfly this month. I think there was about 22,000. And you look
That-
up, there's so many butterflies. I've never seen so many monarch butterflies before. It's just amazing. It was just, if anyone's there, please stop by Pismo Beach Monarch Butterfly Grove.
That's amazing. I just recently went to the Natural Bridges site, and they probably had maybe like, I don't know, 20 or 30 that we could see. So it's amazing to hear about Pismo Beach. So yeah, if you can make it down there, you have family that lives nearby, check it out. Okay, so next, I'm going to talk about wintering birds. So if you're a birder, you probably know this already, but birds also like to overwinter in our temperate climate that we have in the Bay Area. We are part of the Pacific Flyway, which you can see on this GIF on the left-hand side of the page. It's an area that stretches from the Arctic to the coast of Mexico and from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific. And north-south, it's over 4,000 miles long, and in some places it's over 1,000 miles wide. And the San Francisco Bay is a critically important stopover for birds moving along the Pacific Flyway, as well as the diversity of habitats that we have in the Bay Area too. So it allows migrating birds a place to rest and recuperate during their long journey. Our coastal parks, including the one on the bay in Coyote Point, are great places to catch glimpses of overwintering seabirds. And Coyote Point and Bear Island and Redwood City, which we don't manage, but those are both great places to see overwintering shorebirds and waterfowl. So we have a black-necked stilt that you can see is a type of bird that likes to overwinter here in the fall and winter at Coyote Point. You can see it out of our marina area. And then cedar waxwings are another example of a bird that you will see in the winter. And they're one of the songbirds that you can see here, but they're just gorgeous with their bright tip, very bright yellow tip of a wing. And they also are just really, they have a really, great personality that you can see in the birds. They're very funny, and they like to eat berries from various plants that are have berries at this time of year. So that's another great check out. All right. Our next thing I want to mention is that winter is also a great time to plant new seeds. And this cartoon is something that gets refreshed every year, but I love it every year. On the bottom right, aren't you terrified of what 2022 could be like? Everything is so messed up. The other person says, I think it'll bring flowers. Yeah, why? Because I'm planting flowers. So I just love that. It's a great perspective to have about life in general, but it's also something that you can do in our parks. So winter is a great time to plant seeds. You can make a difference with our stewardship volunteer programs if you're interested. We have them almost every weekend. You can check it out on our website. I'll put the link in the chat in a little bit. But our volunteers and park staff work together at different locations each week to restore native habitat and beautify our county parks. You can lend a hand with invasive plant removal or planting native plants like the folks are doing in this photo at San Bruno Mountain. And you can also help with seed collection so that we can grow native plants for these native planting days in the nursery that we have. And if you're interested, no experience is necessary. Training and tools will be provided, and work will be socially distanced, and masking is required right now. And you can register on our website if you're interested in coming out and planting or taking out old plants or invasive plants. So that's mostly what I had to say during my presentation today. I'm sorry it's on the shorter side. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. Also, if you want to check out anything, of course, please go to our website and I'll put that in the chat. I also have a newsletter that goes out every month. And that one has information about all these cool things that we're doing for the department. And so the email address, or sorry, the address that I just put in the chat is our general parks website. This next link is for our email newsletter. And then of course you can follow us on any of our social media channels. We have posts every day about really cool things, and we are focusing on a different park each every other week. So we're doing like a really in-depth highlight. We already did Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, the one behind me, but each day was something different to look for at that park. So if you're interested, check us out on social media and you can find all that. And then lastly, here's some of the resources that I talked about in this webinar, and I'll put those links in the chat as well. So thank you all, and I'll stick around if you have any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Ranger Wright, I was in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed that they have activities at night at the parks. And are you guys starting to do night activities, hikes, or walk in the park at night?
We have done movie nights for sure at some of our parks last summer, but it's mostly a seasonal thing during the summertime. We also we do have night hikes every Friday during the summer at Memorial Park for the campers. But if you're interested in joining that those hikes, you can always join as a person who's not camping at Memorial, although it is pretty far out there. It's a good drive from civilization, so just keep that in mind. But in general, we have hosted night hikes like a couple of times a year at places like San Pedro Valley Park or Edgewood Park. But we are currently still kind of in a holding pattern as far as in-person events right now because of the most recent strain of COVID. So we're just trying to do what we can to make sure everyone's safe with our events. So mostly going to be doing virtual programming for the next for this month and the next at this point in time.
Great, thank you.
Did you say you have a YouTube channel? Oh, there it is. Or is
We
it a channel?
yeah. And actually, I don't have the actual
URL or
the URL for our YouTube channel. I have that for that one video, so you could go find it based on that video. Stop screen sharing for a second and try to get to our YouTube channel to get you that link.
there is one that says San Mateo County Parks.
Yeah, there's actually two. We're trying to make consolidate those two, so it's not confusing. But I think this is the right link for our channel that has the videos I was talking about. So we have quite a few different videos that we put together over the last couple of years. The Restoring a Watershed Top to Bottom, that's on there, was the program about restoring the Pescadero Creek watershed from top to bottom that the Resource Conservation District did. And then we have our Fantastic Fungi program, all about different mushrooms in the parks. And then we have quite a few other ones, one about woodpeckers, one about raptors that you can find in our county. So yeah, lots of cool things to check out on our YouTube channel as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ranger Wright.
Yeah, thank you so much. Any more questions? If not, all right. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I hope you get a chance to check out some of our parks this winter.
Thank you. We look
Thank
forward to the
you.
next topic. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.